And welcome everyone to another Smart Money Circle show. I'm Adam Sarhan. With me today is Greg Beischer, who's the president and CEO of Alaska Energy Metals Corp. Ticker is AEMC, and it trades on the Toronto Stock Exchange. Greg, thank you so much for taking the time.
No, thanks for the invite, Adam. Pleasure.
So, Greg, I always like to begin. Can you please tell us about your story and how you got to where you are today?
Yeah, sure. I'm a geologist and a mining engineer by education, and I ended up sort of falling by accident into that field, but it's ended up being my whole career as a mineral exploration geologist, searching for new mineral deposits that could be mined. We're not a mining company, we're a company that searches for and, if possible, discovers deposits that could be profitably mined. And that's how we create value for our shareholders. But yeah, I am the CEO of this company, and I've been a CEO now for about 20 years of a couple of different companies, but never really set out to do that. I was, a technical geologist with a big mining company for a couple of decades before I decided, well, I could do this. I could take on the role, and so I did, and it's been quite the adventure. I really had to stretch myself to sort of transition from technical scientist to CEO, leader of a team, but done okay so far.
I love that. So, Greg, I always like to ask, can you tell us about your company and then some of your competitive advantages, please?
Well, it's interesting because I've now lived in Alaska for 30 years, and the big mining company that moved me here was a big nickel mining company. In fact, at the time, the world's biggest nickel company. And my mandate as a young manager was to lead a team to search for nickel in Alaska, and we found it. In the end, it just wasn't a rich enough deposit for that company. They decided to retreat from Alaska. I decided to stay because I liked it so much here. And then a couple of years ago, I saw the opportunity to reacquire the mineral rights to that project because I could see that nickel was going to be coming into a very strong demand. And that's one of the things about our mining and exploration industry. It's extremely cyclical. The metal prices go up and down, and things change, and it creates opportunity. So it's a type of business that, when times are good, they're really good, but when they're bad, they're bad. But that's bad times is the opportune time where you can buy up something inexpensively that you may be able to transform into something extremely valuable. So, our company has discovered a very large nickel deposit in Alaska. It's a new company, only about 18 months old at this point, listed on the TSX Venture Exchange. People in America often ask me, "Oh, why is there so many Canadian companies exploring here?" And the reason is because the stock exchanges cater to the resource industries. I mean, Vancouver is uh, essentially the Silicon Valley of the mining industry. That's where startups go to start. And so that's where we've started our company, even though for all other intents and purposes, it's a US company. We're all based here in Alaska.
I love it.
Yeah, so we're starting down the road to develop this big nickel deposit. Our next steps are to further define the metal in the ground on an engineering basis and calculate whether it would be feasible to extract that metal at a profit. And that's how we create value for our shareholders. So the shares are trading only at about 20 cents US right now. But if everything goes well and the nickel price ticks up like it's projected to do, then our shareholders could hope for much higher share price at some point in the future.
So, yeah, can you talk a little about that, please, and how that works so investors understand the trajectory? Assuming things go well, what happens to revenue, earnings, all that fun stuff, and then valuations and market cap? so on and so forth, irrespective of the price of nickel. This is just a matter of you translating all this into dollars and cents, if I understand you correctly.
That's right. But, we don't actually produce anything and make a profit right now, or have any revenues. So we attract venture capital, people who understand the risks, invest in our company by purchasing shares in the company in private placements. One of the best analogies, I guess, would be pharmaceutical research, where millions of dollars are spent. Scientists will make a new discovery that, maybe the drug cures some form of cancer, gets over the first hurdle, but then there's more hurdles to get over. And each step costs millions and millions of dollars. It's very high risk business. And the reality is, most of those drugs or most of these metal prospects don't make it to the end game. But there's a lot of money to be made along the way, nevertheless, for investors. When each one of those hurdles gets passed, usually there's a sharp share price increase. And that's when investors can make good money. And then if the drug actually does cure cancer, or we do actually find a deposit that can be mined at a big profit, then shareholders can really cash in.
Thank you. I love that analogy, by the way. So let's talk about risk, Greg. How do you handle risk, and what are some mistakes you see people make with respect to risk management?
Well, yeah, there's almost nothing except risk in a business like ours, or in pharmaceutical research for that matter. And so the best you can do is to try to stack the odds in your favor. So, for us, drilling rock cores into the earth is the test. But we use a lot of tools to sense various properties in the earth before we actually drill that rock core to test our theory. And so the more different tools you use in advance of doing that expensive drill hole, the better your odds are of actually hitting the metal target that you want to hit. And it's the success rate is very, very low in our industry. So very, very high risk. Reward is very high if we're successful. But to increase the odds of success, the best way is to take the time and expense to really do the homework. Use all the tools in your toolbox. Use your imagination. Be creative. Use cutting edge technology. But in the end, you do have to test your theory. But if you're testing it with lots of evidence, then your odds are better.
Oh, I love that. It's almost like the power law distribution for those of you that aren't familiar versus the bell curve distribution, where a few of the data points really make up the largest amount of success, but that's okay because think of like the number of people, the population of a city. If you look at all the cities across America or Canada or any country for that matter, a few of them have a lion's share amount of the population. So if you're hired to make a police force or a water force for the average population of all the cities, it won't work because the 20 million people that live in Toronto or New York or whatever the case may be isn't the same as all the hundreds of smaller cities that have smaller populations. But when those things hit, they hit and then some, and they more than clean up for all the other risks. I love that. That's a really, really good way of explaining that.
Thank you.
So next question for you. Timeless lessons you've learned along the way that you'd like to share with the audience, please.
I mean, I guess one thing, especially in our business, is not to overpromise. It's a fine line to walk. My job as CEO is to attract venture capital, so I have to convince investors that my idea, our team's idea, is solid, that there's a really good chance that we're going to discover a metallic mineral deposit that's worth a fortune. But the reality is, the odds are really stacked against us. So even though I might have a really compelling series of drill targets, I know that the odds that those targets will pan out are low.
Yeah.
so it's hard to promise uh, that the team will hit. And in the early days, I guess I did maybe overpromise and therefore underdelivered. But so now I just try to keep things when I'm raising venture capital in perspective. People understand the risks inherently. They know they could hit it big if we do, but that chances are, that their capital could evaporate too.
Yeah, no, I love that. That's what basically the capital business, if I understand properly, that's what it's based on, though. Most of the ideas don't work, but the few that do turn into Uber or Airbnb or whatever the case may be, Facebook, and then bam, it just more than makes up and then some for the ones that don't.
Exactly. Yep.
Hmm.
Yep.
So beautiful. Timeless mistakes you've made or you've seen other people make, and how do you avoid them?
Um, Timeless mistakes, not necessarily that I have made them, but I do see in our business, people and managers, companies make the mistake of not uh, uh, keeping their seasonal employees going through the year. I mean, it is a capital intensive business, so we're always looking for ways to cut costs. But to me, people is not the way to do it. But it's, for example, in Alaska particularly, it's a seasonal business, so we hire numerous geologists just for the summer work. But if you don't keep them engaged and employed through the winter months, then you've just lost everything that they learned.
Yeah.
And they're the ones on the ground. They're the ones looking at the rocks. I'm not the one out there. They're the ones out there making the observations. And very often in our business, other companies will just lay their staff off at the end of the summer, and all that information, all that knowledge just walked away.
Uh,
And that's so important for making discoveries. And again, and it doesn't matter whether you're a mineral exploration geologist or any kind of a research and development company. It's knowledge that is by far the most important aspect. The people are the most important.
Beautiful. I absolutely love that. It's almost like starting something and then stopping and then starting and then stopping. Whereas if you just
Yeah.
go, you're going to get there much faster. Beautiful. Greg, what makes a great leader?
Well, I would say most of all, vision. You have to have a clear idea of where you want to get to, and express that to your team, and draw them into that vision. But also, respect and integrity, honesty. That all trickles down from the top, and you've got to be the very best. If you are, then people will follow suit. In a past company, I had the opportunity to do business with probably 9 or 10 different major mining companies around the world. And it was amazing to see the difference in corporate culture amongst the people at each one. You thought they'd be all more or less the same, but there was amazing differences. But I soon realized that it all trickles from the top. It's the type of people that are running the company that create the culture of the company. And so I think it's especially important to have the highest levels of honesty, integrity, respect for the people that are working for you, treat them the way you wanted to be treated. And it's usually all good.
Love it. How about adversity? How do you handle adversity and what are some obstacles that you've had to overcome along the way?
Yeah, calmly.
Yeah,
It's
seriously.
easy to get upset and anxious, but in the end, remain calm, think your way through it. I always try to consider all the possible outcomes in advance, and that way I'm ready to make the choices when you have to. But even when something really unexpected and really adverse comes up, well, remain calm. You'll get through it. That's
I,
the best way.
I love it. It's funny. I wrote a book about investing. It's called Psychological Analysis right behind me. And it was number one on Amazon, Greg, for a few months. And the whole point is to teach people how to make rational, not emotional decisions with their money.
Yeah.
So taking the emotions out of it, you're speaking my language. I absolutely love it. All right.
Yeah. No,
Final.
sorry, I've seen CEOs that have different sort of personalities, and they get really angry or yell and shout. But to me, that's not my personality. But I don't think it works even for them.
Yeah, it doesn't. Not at all. So, final question for you, Greg. What is the best piece of advice you'd like to give the audience or give your 30-year-old self?
Yeah, I would say in my case, be more confident. It took a while for me to gain confidence. It was actually, I did get the piece of advice from a fellow that I'd been working with, and just said, Greg, he said, you've got lots of great ideas, but you better start telling people about them. And because I was kind of shy and at a young age, but yeah, once I came out of my shell and realized I did become a lot more confident, and it made a big difference.
I love it. Well, Greg, thank you so much for taking the time to speak today. People can learn more by going to alaskaenergymetals.com. And we'll hopefully have you on again soon. This was fantastic.
Great, Adam. Thank you.